That's right, it's time for the first of my secret book reviews, starting with The Magicians. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about The Magicians by Grossman, which I read kind of on the recommendation from Ben from Books with Ben Gascon, because I know that he loves this and it's a favorite. He didn't specifically recommend this to me, partially because this does not sound like a book that I think I would have enjoyed, but it is a part of a video, which I will link down below, where I read favorites from booktube friends of mine and did not tell them about it or tell anyone, so it's very secret, and so I'm only posting this review, which I've pre-filmed, after that video comes out. But this was actually really difficult because The Magicians is, I just want to say, brilliant, and is not quite what I expected at all, and just not not what I expected is really probably the best way to say it. But I've heard this series described as Harry Potter for adults, which I understand that description, but I think that is doing a disservice. This is more of a riposte to the whole idea of both like the magic school or like the portal fantasy. It's those ideas of like the kind of more children's stories of magic. This is like a response, and not I wouldn't call it a satire. It is a bit of a sarcastic response to so many of those fantasy tropes, but in a way that I think is so much better done than similar authors and books I've read who are going for that kind of thing. Something that immediately reminded me of in a bit is And Put Away Childish Things by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is a novella that deals with some of the same topics, but in quite a different way. It also is dealing with the idea of this like portal fantasy world being real, and this is somewhat has based around that too. There's a series of books called Fillory that's about this mystical land, and it's sort of like the Narnia stand-in, as well as just the whole idea of those books where you go off on your magical adventure and come back, and that idea as well. But here we're following something that's definitely on the darker side with the character Quentin, who is the gifted kid, and there's lots of talks there, and it's absolutely feels aimed at the kind of the former gifted kid type of crowd, and bits of that I definitely could relate to, and just the how a lot of those people end up feeling, and deals with a lot of themes of depression and stuff like that as well. But Quentin, who is getting ready for a college interview, and then the interviewer ends up dying, and he meets a mysterious paramedic, and then as he is like loses like a piece of paper that he's trying to grab, he ends up suddenly transported into the College of Breakbills, which is a magic college, the magic college in the United States. And from there, he is learning all about the world of magic and how none of this really is what he expected. Immediately, again, so this is magic school, which is another one of the things that I had heard. It's magic school, and not my thing. I'd also heard the Harry Potter for adults thing, and again, though, it doesn't at all feel like that. And part of it is specifically like Harry Potter seems to exist in this world. It's not called out by name, but Harry Potter seems to exist. Other things like Narnia seem to exist, as well as specifically the Fillory books as well. So there's kind of these pokes and these things at it, these references, and kind of this sarcastic, like expecting it to be. And I think part of what makes this so brilliant is it's kind of the perfect book for all of those people who grew up disappointed that they never got their Hogwarts letter, and were just kind of sad about that, or just like disappointed that they never found their portal into a fantasy world because they just wanted to go there and live in that world. And I think a lot of us as fantasy readers, even if you don't specifically fall into that category, a lot of us can relate to that. It's like, I was never a Harry Potter fan, but I know that was such a huge thing for so many people, especially in part of the childhood. And so it's kind of aimed at that. And then but it's about this character Quentin, who's not the easiest character to feel for necessarily, but I think a lot of people can relate to at least aspects of him. I found there were definitely aspects of the character that I could relate to, but he's going there and just finding out that in some ways it's not enough, and it's finding out about it, and it's still just in some ways mundane, and that's kind of what you're looking at, is just the what if you get there, you get to the magical world, or you go to the magical school, and it's not what you think, and life still kind of sucks because you're unhappy, or you're dealing with depression and that type of thing, and it just doesn't fix all of your problems. And that thematically is such a big thing. It's looking at the getting what you want, but having it not be what you expect. And I feel like, again, how many of us have, especially reading fantasy younger, just wanted to disappear into the fantasy world. There's a lot of people who read for escapism, especially with fantasy. I know when I was younger, very much I was reading fantasy for escapism purposes as well too. And so it's that kind of thing, and it's this character who never was willing to let go of this fantasy world and of the idea of magic. He wanted it so desperately to be real, but then just again finds himself in a place where it's still more of the same, even though learning that type of learning about magic, learning this type of thing, and just still finding a lot of the same problems, and these people who are finding the same problems. Also, the approach of like, it's this magical school, but then what do you do when you're done? And it's like a lot of people just don't necessarily do a whole lot. Like, you either kind of keep doing the thing, or you go off into the world and try and be somewhat normal, or maybe do something related to magic, or just go off on your own. And it's the idea of the type of characters, which they're extremely intelligent, it's supposed to be like the best characters, who are all kind of isolated and on their own anyway. And so this kind of look, and it's just, you're dealing with this character who is a bit of an ass, is very obviously dealing with depression and just a lot of other issues. And seeing the lens of all of this, the idea of like the magic school, the portal fantasy, all of these different things, and exploring that in just a biting way, but a way that just also feels so realistic. And that's what really, it's just, I really loved this book, and I was not expecting to. This is one of those books that I had avoided because I didn't think I was going to like. I know it was really popular, and I know not everybody is going to get into this book as easily. I can see with some of the choices here and a lot of the things in it that I feel like some of this normally just wouldn't work for me, but it just absolutely did for this story. It's brilliant. It really, really is. It's not going to work for everybody, and that's totally fine. But what Lev Grossman has done with this book is just so good. And it's very, despite it's obviously it's a fantasy, it's like the fantasy with just like the dash of realism, but the very realism, and looking at these characters and these people and the things that they do, and they're very real people, they're very flawed people. And it's also looking at the idea of you're taking a bunch of teenagers and you're throwing them into these situations that they're not really prepared for as well. And so again, unlike you have the Harry Potter, where it's all of these kids and there's all of these ridiculous situations they're put in for that don't make any sort of sense. And that's where all of the things with Harry Potter, that if you just think about it for a second, they don't make sense. You're not getting that here, because this is literally like a college, and like there's magic stuff, but it's you're not worried about like, oh my gosh, what if we wander into the corridor and find the evil Dark Lord or something. Like, it's none of that. It's much more mundane in a very realistic way. And it's just it's kind of, even like I'm finding myself having a hard time even explaining some of it. It's just, this was so engaging and just so real, and it really, like I said, I just was pulled into this book so quickly. And I feel like, again, it won't work for everybody, but the person, again, if what I said at the beginning kind of resonates with you, like the person who just had that part of you where you were always disappointed you couldn't actually go into the fantasy world, or you couldn't, you didn't get your letter to go to the magic school, all that kind of thing. I feel like this is just like a must for the little bit of the jaded adult fantasy reader. This is like a must-read book. I feel like, if you're still the very happy fantasy reader, maybe not, but the jaded adult fantasy reader, or like the former gifted kid kind of stereotype person, this is the book that is for you. 100%. I think that you will like it for similar reasons that I do. It's not the book to read if you want escapist fantasy by any means, and it's not like horrifically dark or anything. It's just, it's very real, despite the bits of the magic. And it's sometimes challenging with some of the characters too. There are some things that I think too, I've mostly been saying really all the positive things because I have so much to say there. There are a few parts that are kind of odd pacing wise, which I should mention, because we have a chunk where it's just all of a sudden an event happens and there's travel and we're doing something totally different. And again, though, it all really does play into all of these ideas, and it somehow works. But there is a section. I feel like if you read the book, you know what section I'm meaning. That just feels very different from the rest of the book, and doesn't fully work. But again, it just fit really well, and it was strong enough that it really didn't pull me out either. But it was a little bit different and weird, and part of it is just, you know, the lens we're seeing this through with the main character as well really colors the way that you see people and see things, and him. And he's not, like I said, he's not the most likable character in a lot of ways, and so I can see why that would be a struggle for people. I've not really had issues with that because I've really enjoyed some. Like, this is nowhere near like Thomas Covenant by any means, but like I don't have to like a character to get into it. But I feel like people who are more character readers might have a little bit more of a struggle with this one. This is more idea based, theme based, with a lot of what it's looking at, and so sometimes the plot feels a little bit meandering, and the characters are very deeply explored, I will say. But it's also just doesn't feel necessarily like a totally character focused book, if that makes sense, even though it is in some ways. Is sort of the way I'll say that. The last thing I will say is there's a particular line, and it is almost like a throwaway line. It's like it's very relevant, but it also it just. I really want to say what it is, but I can't because it's a spoiler. Well, okay, so I'll timestamp it because I have to mention this specific line will be the one actual spoiler I mention. But so, spoiler starting here. So the line where right toward the end, after being in Fillory, after all of the big reveals and everything, and the line that, you know, don't be too hard on Martin. That Christopher Plover guy diddled him any chance he got. Why do you think he was hiding in a grandfather clock to begin with? Just that one line. It's not talked about. It's not really addressed further than that. It's not thematically something we're really looking at. But like, man, is that just was like that, taking a like precise shot again at the kind of the naivety of children's that kind of stuff with it, and just makes you like think of like, oh gosh, yeah, you're so used to this idea of just there's this you know, the children around this older man and all the fantasy stories, and you just start to think, and it like immediately gets your mind in a loop. And so it's this one line that just really sent me like, oh my gosh, yeah, just thinking about all of this kind of stuff, and like this kid who discovers the fantasy world because he's trying to hide, and I'm just like, oh man. So again, I feel like just showing the and there's nothing like that that's actually like happens on screen. Again, this is very specifically just one line, but just showing what Lev Grossman is doing with just kind of taking this sarcastic kind of jaded adult approach without being over the top with it either is the thing too. Because I referenced earlier, without saying his name, Abercrombie, who I feel like takes the sarcasm and kind of biting satire over the top for my taste and just kind of beats you over the head with it. It's much more nuanced here, and that's I think why I preferred it a lot. It's doing this, but it's more so just showing you the difference. It's not outright telling either. It's not just like constantly like putting it in your face, but it is this very kind of jaded, sarcastic adult approach, looking back at so many of these ideas of fantasy, and it's brilliant. I am so excited to continue this series, which is not something I ever thought I would be saying. I put it off reading this for so long, and that's where, again, I thought this would be the perfect book, because I don't think Ben would ever expect that I would have picked this up, even though I know that he enjoys it, because, again, doesn't seem like it would be a book for me. But yeah, this was fantastic. I really recommend checking it out, and definitely let me know your thoughts on it if you have read it as well, if you're interested, or if this has changed your mind on trying it. Let me know in the comments. That is it for this one, though. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.